Hello, Mind Bloomers. This is Mind Bloom, the safe space at the intersection of mental health advocacy and breast cancer awareness. Mind Bloom is your podcast. Subscribe to hear more on female entrepreneurship and the juggling of family life, career goals, and romantic relationships. Not an easy task, especially if your physical and mental health need a big hug right now. Hello, Mind Bloomers. This is Marina Gee, your host, and welcome to Mind Bloom, the podcast for all things mental health and breast cancer awareness. Before we dive into this week's episode, let me just say that Mind Bloom, the podcast, and the content at Mind Bloom U across all platforms is not intended to be a substitute for medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. You should always contact your providers for medical counsel. Never disregard any medical treatment or delay seeking professional help because of any content authored or distributed by Mind Bloom. Hello guys, thank you for joining me on another Tuesday, another episode of Mind Bloom. I'm so excited that you're here. I'm excited that I'm here too. We should all be thankful that we're alive and healthy enough that we're listening to podcasts and excited and curious and interested in what's going on in the world and around us. So yeah, this is going to be a great episode. I want to thank those who have subscribed already to Mind Bloom, the podcast, on any platform, any podcast platform of your preference. Please leave a review on the Apple Podcasts app. That would be amazing. And if you like what you listen every Tuesday on Mind Bloom, please don't forget to hit subscribe, okay? It's not enough to come back to it every week. I mean, I love that and it's great. But if you hit subscribe, just hit it. I'll pause here for 1 sec. Go and hit subscribe. Done? Yay! So if you hit subscribe, that would be awesome. If you would like to know what I am up to throughout the week, then follow Mind Bloom at Mind Bloom U on, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and Pinterest. And check out the Mind Bloom YouTube channel. And for that one, I don't have a link yet. We're not that famous yet. So you just have to Google or type on YouTube Mind Bloom. And the little orangey icon of Mind Bloom will show up. And again, what do? You hit subscribe. Go on there. You want to pause this? We've got time. I can wait. And you go on YouTube and you hit that red button of subscribe. And then watch a couple of the interviews I leave there every week. You can also like them and comment. I mean, just make noise. Talk with me. Just talk with me. I love to hear what you're up to. What are your favorite things about Mind Bloom? What is it that you don't like about it? We don't need to know that. And just in general, stay in touch. All things social media regarding Mind Bloom are going well and steady. So I don't think I have much to say about that. So we're just going to leave updates on social media for another time when I have super duper updates. I do have two awesome updates, though, that don't have to do with social media. One of them is that Mind Bloom is now a team of two. Yay, of two people. So it'll be me. And of course, you always had the dog, right? So she'll still be around. But no, what I wanted to say is that I hired a communications manager. And when I say I hired a communications manager, I want to really, really downplay the word hire and emphasize the position communications manager. What I mean with this is that, hire is just a way of putting it, I guess, because there will be no salary involved. No benefits, no big perks other than, some kudos here and there. But almost 3 months in, I was feeling it in my bones and in just how tired I was that I needed to delegate some of the tasks. So I asked around, and I asked on social media, mostly Twitter, if people knew of anyone interested in an internship or something just like an unpaid position to work, say, 4 to 6 hours a week with me, just to help me, streamline whatever it is that I can't get a hold of. And in this particular case, I think it's going to be editing the video parts of the interviews and uploading them on YouTube. So for now, I think it would be mostly that. And if time permits, maybe help out with a little bit of Pinterest, a little bit of zhuzhing up Facebook. So just, a few strokes here and there. Nothing major. Like I said, 4-6 hours a week because it is an unpaid position. And then, once or if Mind Bloom picks up and we start getting some sponsorships, some companies would like to advertise with us, then, this could turn into a paid position, maybe a part-time position, maybe a full-time position. The sky's the limit. I'm really invested in this. And the person that will be my communications manager sees how invested and passionate I am about this and understands that if I am growing, they are growing with me, and we'll all be able to get a piece of the pie, I guess, if we want to put it that way. So join me in congratulating and welcoming my communications manager. Yay! Now, the other update I had for you was that this weekend, Saturday, I was able to take the full day off, which is not much of an update, I guess, but it is for me because, Mind Bloom will be 3 months old on September 10th, and I don't think I've had much free time since inception, and if I had, of course, some free time, then I, would feel guilty. And there's always this idea in my head that, there's this I could be doing and there's this I'm missing out on in terms of work. And why am I, just watching TV if I could be doing another Pinterest post or pin? But no, this Saturday, so here in Brooklyn, the weather was misty and cloudy. It was drizzling a little bit, sometimes raining, and I woke up and took my dog out for a walk and went and grabbed my coffee, something I do every single morning. And then when I got back home, I was like, oh my gosh, this bed and this TV and this is just so inviting to spending the day curling up in bed with Bianca. So that's exactly what I did. I dimmed the natural light coming in the room and I turned on the TV, which is something I never do. And this is not even something I don't do because I'll feel guilty about it or I have to work. No, I just don't ever turn on the TV during daytime. It's just a habit I've had for year. I mean, it just doesn't, it's not in my nature. Anytime I pause, if I pause during the day, I'll listen to a podcast or go for a walk or even take a nap. But I don't have that initiative of grabbing the remote and turning on the TV. But this Saturday I did. And it was just what I think my body was asking for and my mind was asking for. It was just like a relaxing day, cozying up in bed and just binging, just watching whatever I felt like. Maybe a nap will make its way in at some point. We will see. We will we will be open and welcoming to anything and everything that the day wants to bring to me. Although not much. Like, we're not asking for much. We just want a little bit of Netflix, maybe hot cocoa, the dog in bed with me. That's it. Pretty much it. So that's exactly what I did. I finished watching something I had been watching the days prior, which was a very silly show. Please don't judge me. It was The Next in Fashion. So here I am, 5 months at home, wearing nothing but sweatpants for the last 5 months. If I ever even do my makeup, that's like a glorious day. And here I am watching The Next in Fashion and looking at the new trends in fashion and in Tokyo, London, New York. New York, what? So I had a blast. I had, I think, 2 episodes to finish the season and see who the next in fashion is. And now I know, but I won't tell you. You have to go and see it for yourselves. So in a nutshell, it felt really good to just be like guilt-free and comfortable, cozy, thankful, very, very thankful and appreciative for the things I have, a roof over my head, my nicely decorated bedroom, my TV, my dog, and the health of my dog and of myself and of my roommates and of my family and extended family. So with all of that and with Mind Bloom growing and just becoming increasingly a reference, I want to say, in the world of mental health and breast cancer awareness, I felt, I could do this. We can do this. And then what's funny is that every half an hour I would go like, am I not missing something? Did I not do something? Did I not post on social media somehow? And like every 30 minutes I'd have like a mini, tiny wee panic attack. But no, I had not forgotten anything. I had done everything I had for the week. I had edited this week's interview. I had posted everything I wanted to post and then some on social media. And I had as well submitted a text for an important newsletter in Canada that had asked me to produce a text on mental health and breast cancer, which I did, and I submitted it, I think, Friday, at which point I was like, oh my God, this feels so, so good. I am ticking all the boxes and just meeting all the goals. And it's just me. So, the other person hasn't even started yet. So this feels good. I feel I can rest. So that felt really good. And then as I was resting, I was, also thinking because, our brains never really stop. But I guess that's okay. I don't really want my brain to stop. That's really not the point here. But I was thinking, I'm just gonna, the update for this week, I'm just going to talk about this moment of resting and of just taking the time for myself and to do whatever I please without guilt, because that's the thing. Sometimes we will do the things we want to do and we desire to do. And for me, this always translates into, let me eat a tub of Ben & Jerry's ice cream. But that does not come without guilt. Maybe I'll do it. Maybe I'll indulge myself and eat that ice cream. But that does not come without guilt. Whereas this this day just was. I was just being, and that felt so good. I also had some phone calls to make to check up on family members and to just touch base, which I do weekly, sometimes more than once a week. And I texted these relatives and said, I'm taking the day off. I'm not turning on the computer today, and I just really don't feel being on my phone much today. So can we talk tomorrow? And this talking about guilt, of course, yes. For a second there, I thought, I'll just do this. I mean, it's 10 minutes and it's nothing, and I can talk with these people. I mean, it gives me pleasure to talk with them, so why not do it? But then, I looked deeper into, me and just what I was asking from that day. And I remembered all this talk about boundaries and about tapping into your feelings and doing what's best and what feels right for you. And I thought, well, heck, I can't just preach this and then not do it. So I'm going to give it a try and text these people and say, let's maybe push it for tomorrow. I made sure they were reassured that I was okay. I was not depressed. I was not comatose in the hospital. I was just requesting this pause. And to my amazement, their answer was very positive. It was just, and just very nonchalant. It was just, sure, yeah, we'll talk tomorrow. Everything's good on our side as well. And if you say you're well, then we'll talk tomorrow or whenever it's possible. So that gave me so much peace of mind, and to be honest, also made me feel proud of myself of having made that decision of strengthening my boundaries and alerting others for the existence of these boundaries. And mind you, no one was really crossing anything. It was, if anyone, it was me. I was already thinking, okay, I need a day to rest. I need a day to just watch TV or do whatever I please. But let me just squeeze in these 10-minute calls and I'll be fine. In the past, I would have. And the past maybe like 3 months ago. So, this is always a work in progress. But not today, not this weekend. And that feels like growth to me. It feels awesome, really. So if this update this week leaves a message at all, I want it to be that we pay less attention to the buzzwords of, being in the moment, staying in the present, and boundaries this, and compassion that. I want, and me, those are very important. But what I mean is, let's forget those for a minute and really tap into what's going on inside. And every time we have this little voice telling us, yeah, you're tired, but you can do this. Just as one more thing. I mean, it's 10 minutes. It's not going to kill you. Why don't we just try to shush it and see what happens? Worst case scenario is nothing really happens. Just when I was starting to spiral down into this guilt of, I'm not going to make my weekly routine phone call. People are going to start getting mad at me. And then, the usual suspects of, they're going to abandon me, they're going to stop loving me, etc. So all of these things. And this week, for a change, I just shushed all of that. I said, let's give this a try. Let's be curious and give this texting people and tell them if we can talk tomorrow instead. Let's give this a try. All right? Push comes to shove and they'll say, we're really worried. Let's really talk. What's going on? But that didn't really happen. And usually I'm starting to learn this now. Usually that worst case scenario that we're always so quick to draw in our minds, it usually never happens, right? Don't you feel that sometimes? We make all these puzzles and scenarios and just the world's gonna crumble, everyone's going to abandon us. And then what happens? Nothing. People just go on with their lives. Isn't it crazy how things are? And then the grand finale of The Next in Fashion ended. So I found out who The Next in Fashion is. Of course, I had to go check them out on Instagram, but I didn't follow because I'm very stingy with my follows. No judgment, again, please. And I found myself in that dreaded zone of, oops, now I finished a show. What am I going to do with myself? Because I took the whole day to do this. And if I don't come up with something funny to watch, I'll have to go work. I don't want to do that. So I ran into Brené Brown's talk, which is on Netflix, and to be honest, I don't remember what it's called. Just look up Brené Brown on Netflix. And I thought, okay, this sounds a little bit like too worky for a non-work day. Like, here we go, vulnerability and shame and mental wellness in general. But then, like I was saying, it's not like our brains stop necessarily. And I was, I like her books, and I did not know that this presentation was on Netflix, and it was just right there in front of me. So I just pressed the button, and I learned so many things. I didn't take any notes, or I didn't give myself to like this FOMO or anxiety of, oh my gosh, I should talk about this, I should do this, I was just watching it in a pleasant way, like just any spectator, really, not someone who owns a podcast on mental health. At some point, she talks about her daughter at 6 or 7 years old wanting to do mental pictures, photographic memories of whatever good moments the child is going through. So her mom, Brené, asks, what is that, a photographic memory? And her daughter says, I'm just saving this episode, this moment in my brain, in my mind, so that later, if I feel sad, I can rescue it and think about it, remember it, and feel good again, which is something I'm sure we've all heard about. And it's so linked to the idea of carpe diem, almost. Just enjoy the day, seize the day. And because we can seize all of these fleeting moments, we could all, wouldn't it be great if we could just close our eyes and take that Polaroid picture and save it for later? So that gave me the idea for the Sunday post, which was very well received on Instagram. A lot of people commented and said, this is so true. And so the bottom line is we can all step back a few inches and allow ourselves to rest or to chill or enjoy just a rainy Saturday afternoon and trust that our brains will still be working, because they will, and they never stop, and they're sponges of knowledge and information. And if we give in, and if we give permission for just a moment of joy, of peace, of quiet, of tranquility in our days, if we just allow for those to happen here and there, if we allow ourselves to do that, you just trust that you're still learning, you're still getting input, you're still producing, you are still creating. So all in all, I'm very happy this weekend happened, and I wasn't looking for any external stimulation, and I was still able to be as creative and as energetic as ever, if not more, because I had rested. So basically what I want to say is trust your gut. Turn off here and there all the things that make a lot of noise, and social media makes a lot of noise. Just turn it off. Just shut it down for a few hours, for a whole day. Hey, 2 days, a month, I don't care. And trust yourself, because you are still going to be learning, you're still going to be producing, you're still going to be creating. And the next time you go back on social media, or you go back to making your posts, or you go back to writing that blog article, or you go back to your 9-to-5, you're going to feel stronger and healthier and more vibrant. Our guest today is Elena Joy Thurston. Elena is an inspirational speaker and founder of the Pride and Joy Foundation. She grew up in a turbulent home, joined a conservative church as a teenager, put herself through college, married, and birthed 4 beautiful children. And then life 2.0, though, happened, and it brought with it a divorce, leaving her church, but also a beautiful love story and a successful new career. Her viral TEDx talk has paved the way for speaking engagements around the country. The Pride and Joy Foundation, Elena's not-for-profit, is dedicated to building self-awareness and safety in LGBTQ families and their allies. Queer parents with straight kids get to receive and give support to straight parents with queer kids, and allies get to learn how to raise the next generation of allies. So my conversation with Elena Joy was an absolute wonder. She is an amazing role model. She is a staunch advocate for LGBTQ awareness as well as mental health awareness and breaking down the stigma of mental illness. Elena's activism work also includes debunking conversion therapy, which she experienced in the flesh. And I, for one, was shocked to hear that conversion therapy has been banned in only 20 states in the United States and only 3 countries in Europe. This practice that masquerades as therapy, but is really a pseudo-scientific practice of trying to change an individual's sexual orientation from homosexual or bisexual to heterosexual using psychological, physical, or spiritual interventions. So our conversation was so engaged, it lasted for longer than 1 hour. And as I was editing our interview, I felt the need of breaking down the interview with Elena into 2 episodes. So both today's episode and next week's are going to feature Elena Joy Thurston's talk on Mind Bloom. I hope you can stay for the 2 instances. I promise you will not regret it. Elena is a reference in these matters, and she is a power to be reckoned with. And I'm so proud to have her on Mind Bloom twice. So stay tuned for this serialized interview. Guys, if you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. Turns out it's free. There's creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or your computer. It will also distribute your podcast for you so that everyone can listen to it on Spotify and Apple Podcast and many, many more. And guess what? You can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. It's everything you need to make a podcast in one place. So go download the free Anchor app or go to Anchor FM to get started. Hello, Elena. Welcome to Mind Bloom.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. This is so exciting.
It is my big pleasure to have you on today. I'm sure our audience is just going to be mind bloomed by...
I like what you did there.
I always have to squeeze it in. I mean, people probably hate me for this, but...
I love it.
It's my podcast. I can do whatever I want.
That's great, baby.
And so it is definitely a pleasure to have you. And I would like to start, since we're talking about puns and mind bloom and minds blooming, I would like to know what makes your mind bloom.
Oh, great question. So I really feel like having new experiences is what I need to to bloom, to be open, and especially to receive like creative inspiration, I have to go to new places and meet new people and eat new food and really get out and away. And it like triggers novelty in my brain, and that helps me to bloom.
Stimulation, right? It's you got to be stimulated. How then, I have to ask, how have you been coping with isolation and lockdown?
Yes, thank you. It's been really hard. And the very first thing that has been helpful is me recognizing that I'm missing novelty. Like, it was something that I used to do even when my kids were young. And if I only got like 2 hours to myself, I would go to a new part of town that I've never been at and just walk around and go eat lunch by myself. Right. And so now that I'm in kind of trapped situation, I have to remind myself that I need that novelty. And there's a reason why I feel like I'm going bonkers. And there's a reason why I feel like I can't come up with anything creative. And so when I do leave the house, we've been going camping, very socially distanced, like not in a campground, like no human around for miles and miles. So that's been good for me. That's been really good for me, as well as I will try to find new things on TV. I'll try to find new things on my phone, right? I actually make it a habit in my social media to not follow many other people that do what I do. I try to follow architects and musicians and jewelry designers. Like, I try to be inspired by people who are not in my genre. So that helps as well.
Wow, that is so interesting. That is, I'd never thought about that in terms of social media. Of course, I always lean towards the familial, I guess. But that is a great idea. I hope that doesn't keep you away from following me, since, I hope I'm different enough.
Definitely. Definitely.
For you. No, but back to your coping mechanisms and to deal with this lockdown. It's wonderful, I think, to realize what it is and allow yourself to tap into your needs and really see what it is that you need, and be gentle, like you were saying, when you are going bonkers. You notice that, you are aware of it. And what can you do? You can go, it's okay. Go bunkers for 5 minutes. And then, right.
Yeah. And it's been really good to recognize, like, once I recognize that in myself, it's easier to recognize, like, in my partner, she loves to be a homebody. Like, if she didn't leave the house for a week, she'd be fine. And so, like, we recognizing that I have a need that she doesn't to leave the house, and that we are dealing with this differently. It gives each other space. We don't have to assume that we're reacting to the situation in the same way.
That's so interesting. So you still get your walks and your discoveries of the city, and she stays home and cooks dinner. I think so. I think that's
exactly.
I think that's great. Optimization. I was almost going to say that, and I don't know her, so obviously I wasn't going to say, but I was thinking it. I was thinking, if you are this extrovert, let's say, and just outgoing, I'm almost positive that your partner is going to be this homebody because the opposites attract and they complement each other. I'm sure you probably even learn a little bit from her. What is it that you love so much about being at home, right?
Right.
And she can say the same thing about you going, what is it so much that you like going out?
Absolutely. Yes. I've never been one to binge on Netflix until this whole thing happened. And at first, because I'd never done it, like, I felt really uncomfortable. But when I reframed it as, this is like her comfort time, like just how I have my jump in the car, get on the freeway, drive 100 miles, and that's so good for me. This is what's so good for her, to just have closeness and to be still, be still for a while. Yeah.
And the intimacy comes from that too.
For sure.
I think, yeah. I would side with your partner. I don't have enough lockdown. I could be here. And it's great because I love talking to people, but then we hang up the phone or Zoom and it's just me again. And I get just enough
community and just enough expansion, let's say, of my thoughts, just enough.
This is like your time. Like you've been training for this your whole life. You're ready for lockdown.
I am ready. Someone else earlier was saying, we have been, she's a financial coach. She said, I have been training people for the zombie attack that this is for my whole life. I'm ready. No, I'm ready. I'm ready. I have my savings account. I have my
oh man, that's awesome.
Yeah. It's amazing how people have found over these last 4 months just different ways of coping. And we've changed, I want to say. Like you were watching Netflix, so we've all changed. We've all evolved, I guess.
For sure. And our children as well. For sure.
Yeah. It'll scar us all if it hasn't yet.
Mm-hmm.
Now let's talk a little bit about you, what brings you here, and the incredible, genuine story you have to tell us. I won't even say much today. I just, I was so touched the other day.
Thank you.
Of course.
Yes, I'd love to share my story, but sometimes I skip over details. And so if I do, please just stop me and ask for clarification.
Okay. Will do.
So let's see. I grew up in kind of a crazy family, as many of us did, right? Just a lot of drama and a lot of tension, and just my place in the family and what was happening. I didn't really feel like I belonged to that family. But looking back, I think that probably none of us felt like we belonged. But at the time, it just kind of felt like I was on the out and I didn't really know where I belonged or what I was doing. And when I was a teenager, friends introduced me to a faith, a religion, and it was very community focused. It was very group focused. Like, you are now one of us and our history is your history. And this is how you belong, and this is why we value you, and this is how you have a good family. This is how you become a good mom. This is how you become a good wife. And I really felt drawn to that feeling of, I am going to create my own family where everyone belongs, and this religion is going to teach me how to do that. So I jumped in with both feet and learned a ton, and had a lot of really great experiences. And I took myself to college and did the whole college thing and met my future husband. We got married, started having babies. I had 4 babies by the time I was 30. And by the time I was 37, my youngest one went off to school. And that's when I couldn't deny the fact anymore that I was struggling. But I could reason my way out of it. And I sure tried. I sure tried to convince myself that, Elena, you have such a good life. You have nothing to complain about. You have a husband who's providing very well for your family. You know, you drive the minivan. You're in the neighborhood with the white picket fence and the tree-lined streets, right? Like, I was living that life. And when that thought would creep up in the silence, the thought would creep up, I hate my life. I was so ashamed of it. I was so ashamed. And so I would just push that thought away. And looking back, there were some other clues that I was really struggling. The neighborhood that I lived in was 80% that religion. And so we weren't just like seeing each other on Sundays. We were seeing each other all week long in the neighborhood. We were walking to each other's houses. Like, it was entrenched. It wasn't just a Sunday religion. You were entrenched, right? And so there would be like mom get-togethers, right? Girls' night outs and stuff like that. And a very common part of conversation were women talking about their mental health struggles. And they would compare doctors with each other. They'd compare medications, dosage, like the whole thing. And I would be that woman in the corner thinking, raging in my head, having this huge emotional reaction, thinking, you first world women, like, what do you have? Why is your life so hard, right? And I was doing that whole comparison thing that we as women do so often of, well, my struggle, my trauma, my whatever isn't that bad. I can't give it that much attention because my good friend or my sister or the starving children in Africa, right? pick your trauma, but whatever we have is not nearly as bad as everyone else, right? Yeah. And so that's what I was doing to these women in my head. And I'm sure it came out as well. Like, I'm sure that I made them feel less than, because I really was just judging them so much. And because I was judging them, I wasn't able to see it in myself. I wasn't able to see the anxiety and the depression that had been manifesting for years. It couldn't happen to me because I was reading my scriptures and I was going to the temple every week and I was praying every day with my family. Like, so that must not be anxiety and depression. I must just not be good enough. I need to try harder so I can be good enough. Because I'm not one of those women. Quite the dangerous statement, isn't that? Like, I'm not one of those people, right? Yeah. So the school year went on and I had all this time alone and kept trying to shove these thoughts away. And as you might imagine, that was not working very well. And I started doing all these hobbies, like in my area, the minute your last child goes off to school, well, you join a gym and you do a marathon or a triathlon, or right? Like, that's what the women do. They get their bodies back because now their kids are in school. So that's what I was doing. And I was literally running away from my life. I was running long, long distances, trying to convince myself that everything was fine. Everything's fine. Look at my life. Everything's fine. And it just wasn't working. And so I finally picked up another hobby that was lovely. And it took, what first attracted me to it was it took all the parts of my brain. There was no room for the doubts and the fears to creep in. So it was fly fishing. And I live in the desert of Arizona. So it's a little weird, but it's super fun and I love it. And what happened, I didn't go into it with this intent, but as things happen, I was having these experiences of standing in a river and casting and trying to catch a fish. And it takes so much presence. You have to be right there. You can't be thinking about if you read your scriptures that morning. You can't be thinking about when you're going to go to the temple next. You can't be thinking about it even if you like your life or not. Like, all you can think about is that moment right there. And now looking back, I've realized like that really opened my heart and it allowed me to be with myself. And by doing that, by being with myself and not having any room in my head for judgment, for self-judgment, I was able to realize I really didn't want to be with a man anymore. And in fact, I was completely and totally in love with my best friend. And that was pretty hard to take. Not only was I married, of 17 years at that point, but I also had a place in heaven that if I gave in to this quote unquote struggle of same-sex attraction, I wasn't going to return to heaven. I wasn't going to be with God. And that wasn't acceptable to me, right? None of that was acceptable to me. To lose my marriage, to lose my place in heaven, to be gay, like that, it was just not acceptable. And so I made the decision to enroll myself in what's called conversion therapy, or reparative therapy is another term that's used. And we have to define it because a lot of people don't know it exists. Please, and if they do hear about it, they think, well, that doesn't happen anymore. Maybe that happened in the 50s and 60s, but it doesn't happen anymore. But I'm here to say that it does.
Yes, please define it.
Yeah. So conversion therapy is any therapy whose goal is to suppress the same-sex attraction and result in heteronormative attraction. And so like most things in life, there's a spectrum. On one end of the spectrum, you have very physically invasive conversion therapy. So it used to be electroshock therapy. And that happened up until the 70s and 80s. And now what is way more common, too common, is there are camps where young adults and teenagers are sent to become straight again, right? And the camps will have them watch homoerotic images and then force them to drink like a charcoal drink, which will make them vomit.
Wow.
So trying to create that mind-body connection, right?
And conditioning them. That's classic conditioning.
Classic conditioning, exactly. And so that's where conversion therapy gets very dangerous, because they can use very solid techniques. They can use proven science to screw you up.
Absolutely.
Because there is no success rate. There's literally no success rate. You can't find who's been trained in it at the best university, right? There's literally no way to be trained in it. The APA has debunked it, has said it's harmful. There's no way to specialize in it. There's no way to prove efficacy. Like,
of course.
And unfortunately, as you're either a parent of a teen who's struggling or you're an adult, and either way, whether you're the parent or the person who's struggling, you're very desperate. You know, the stakes are very high. For me, my marriage was on the line. For me, my place in heaven was on the line. And so I jumped in without even Googling the counselor that I was working with. You know, I didn't Google, is there a therapy that can make me straight? You know, I didn't do any research. I just had these blinders on because I was just so desperate for it to work. And it wasn't cheap. So I didn't go through the viewing videos and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So I went through a type of therapy that said something damaged you when you were younger that made you think that you were attracted to women. And so we just need to heal that moment in your past, and then you won't be attracted to women anymore. And so that was my experience with conversion therapy. And so I went 4 days a week, 2 hours a day for 6 months. When I first started. Sorry, yeah.
Did your husband know?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
You came out to him.
I did. Well, he found out. He looked on my phone and he saw the messages to my friend.
It was reciprocated, your love.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that was, it took a while and that was the other layer on everything, was that I thought there was no way she would be interested in me that way, right? She had never had a girlfriend ever. Mm-hmm. And so to me, it was like, this isn't going to happen. And if I make a move or if I say anything, I'm going to lose my best friend.
Right.
And so I was desperate for that to not happen. And then it did, because that can only wear you down for so long. And so, yeah, it was very, very brief, and my husband found out. And so I went to my bishop with my husband, and this was what we decided on. And it was never even considered that I might be gay.
Okay.
It was just, Elena screwed up.
A slip up. Yeah.
It was a slip up. This is a phase, you might say, with a teenager, right? But for me, for an adult, it was a slip up. And so we just need to fix it so we can get on with our lives. That's how the three of us treated it.
Was your best friend also part of your community of?
No, I met her through fly fishing.
Oh.
Yeah. So literally everyone else in my life, like, I had never even met another lesbian when I came out. Like, really 98% of the people in my life were of that faith community. Yeah. So the conversion therapy was intense because it was, okay, let's search your history and let's figure out what damaged you, what broke you. And so that is the premise that you go into every single session is, I'm broken and I'm here to be fixed.
Exactly.
And you can only do that for so long before you've convinced yourself, I'm broken and I'm unfixable because I've been doing this for so long and it hasn't worked. And that's the big mental mess that is conversion therapy. Is you have people who have paid thousands of dollars and the only end result they get is that they're broken and can't be fixed. Which is why the suicide rate is very, very high.
Yeah, exactly. Yes.
Yeah.
I'm so glad you didn't choose that route.
Me too. Every day I am grateful to have 2 feet on the ground.
Wow. So what happened after the 6 months?
Well, so when I started, I was told this will probably take 2 months. And 2 months went by and it still wasn't fixed. I was still thinking about her every night. And my therapist was like, there must be something you're not telling me. And there was. I was 15 years old and I had been assaulted and I had never spoken of it ever. Not to my parents, not to the police, not to my friends throughout the years, not to my husband of 17 years. No one knew about what happened. But I was desperate. And so I shared that with him and he was overjoyed. Like, oh, this is it. This is what makes you think that you're attracted to women. We just need to heal this. And so the therapy technique that he used, and I use therapy in air quotes, but it is kind of legit. He takes you through a breathing technique that it doesn't like put you in a trance or it's not like hypnosis, but it does alter your brain in a way that you can recall things that you had totally forgotten about. You know, memories come back so much more intense. You smell things, you see things, you hear things that you had totally forgotten about. And so that's what I would do 4 days a week. I'd walk into that office and I would do the breathing technique and I would replay that scenario that happened over and over and over and over again. And, you know, you do it where you can change the ending, or you do it where you can, right, you can say what you would have said, you know, like all those things. And man, that was hard for 4 months to replay that over and over again. And at that time, what was happening was the Brett Kavanaugh hearings and the Me Too movement was happening. And we were seeing all these statistics that 3 out of 4 American women have been assaulted in their lifetime. And I had, just previous to that, I had come very close to taking my own life. And I was very blessed that I got help very quickly. And they immediately diagnosed me with anxiety and depression and immediately gave me medication to help. And I started sleeping for the first time in years. And I would wake up and I would start to see things clearly and I could start to connect dots. And so as the Me Too movement was happening and I was reading and of course getting really triggered because what happened to Dr. Blasey Ford was very similar to what happened to me. And so that was hugely triggering, as I'm sure it was for like every woman in the country, right? Yeah. And I remember sitting on my couch watching her testimony and then watching some of the talking heads afterwards, right? And hearing all the statistics and finally putting the dots together. 3/4 of American women have been assaulted in their lifetime. 3/4 of American women are not gay. Like 5% of American women are gay. This doesn't tie out. And then to take it a step further and to think about my very good friends who have gone through their own trauma with men, and some of them absolutely horrific for years and years with family members. And yet here they are as adults having functional relationships with their husbands and being attracted to their husbands and other men and realizing if anyone should be gay, it should be them. Yeah. And they are really not. They're not tempted at all to go down that road. And that was huge for me to realize, okay, this doesn't tie out. This can't work. And I think I'm done with this conversion therapy stuff. Yeah.
And then you were done. So, and then what? You went to the therapist and you said, I'm done. And you went to your husband and your bishop and you said, you're done.
Well, kind of. So I told my therapist, this isn't working and I think I need to be done. And he said, let's try to get one. We need to just try because I know you want to preserve your marriage. So let's get your husband in here. Let's do a group session, see if we can work anything out. And it was within like 10 minutes of that session starting that like my eyes were kind of open because I knew I was there. This was like my last ditch Hail Mary. Let's make this work. And within 10 minutes of the session, I realized, oh, we are not on the same page. and I don't think I'm ever going to be intimate with you again. And this is not fair. It's not fair to you. It's not fair to me. It's not fair to our kids who are learning from us what a functional relationship is supposed to be. And okay, so the marriage is done. And then I just took things very much one step at a time. Like I didn't even think about religion. It was just, okay, it's time to get a divorce. And wow, that's not failure. That's actually the responsible, mature thing to do here. Okay. And again, once I was able to remove that judgment of what divorce meant, then I was able to progress and move forward. Filed for divorce. Moved into my own home for the first time in my entire life. I had my own master bedroom and bathroom, and it was amazing.
Isn't it? Did you just jump on the bed?
Yeah. I left my tampon box out, like the whole thing. It was great.
Yeah.
So then once I was there, I was in my rental and feeling so safe. You know, after 17 years of marriage, that master bedroom had become kind of a battleground emotionally, you know? He had needs and I had needs, and we were like, why can't we figure this out? And it just wasn't working. And so to have such a safe place for myself was life-changing, because at that point I was then able to pray for the first time in months and months and months, and to reestablish that relationship with the divine, and to hear very clearly that my path was switching directions, that I no longer needed to be in this faith community, that I could still have a great relationship with God, and I didn't have to be tied to that. And that was, wow. You know, people call it a faith crisis, and it definitely is. Religion is like, it goes throughout your whole brain, you know, and because it's not just like what you think about God and what you think about the afterlife. In a high demand religion, it's also about what you wear and what you don't wear, and what you eat and drink and what you don't eat and drink, and the words you say and the words you don't say, right? Like it permeates through all these different parts of your brain. And so to break that is intense.
I can only imagine.
Intense. Yeah.
Yes. Do you remember, was there any specific recovery work? Because this is a path of recovery.
Absolutely.
Right? Was there anything in particular and that you remember that helped you?
I really early on started to realize early on that I had all these judgments in my head about sexuality, about divorce, about all these things, about mental illness, right? Mm-hmm. Like I said earlier about how I was being so judgy and I couldn't recognize my own struggle. So once I realized, like, Elena, you have trapped yourself in your own head because of all these judgments. There's so much freedom that you didn't realize was there because you had all these judgments. What else is in there? And so that really took me on a path of studying mindfulness and self-awareness. And that was integral in my healing. Absolutely. I need to make my mental health a priority every single day, because it's kind of like those tracks have been greased, right? Like I got to a really bad emotional place, and where my brain went to was suicide. And so it's very easy for me, if I get back in that place, to go on that path again. And so I take every single day, it's a non-negotiable. My mental health has to come first, which was never that way before, right? Like when you're just a mom of 4 kids and a busy wife, like you come last. Like you might get to watch a TV show after all the kids are in bed, and that's it, right? And now it's not that way. My kids know, no, I meditate every morning. You don't get to interrupt me.
Okay.
And it will happen before I feed you breakfast. Sorry.
You won't die of starvation.
No, you won't. You can meditate with me if you want.
You are indeed a survivor and a warrior, and your story is just incredible. And I mean, so much strength that comes out of every pore.
our episode for this week. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you were able to take away some useful tips and tools to use in your own life. Don't forget to subscribe to Mind Bloom the podcast anywhere you stream your podcasts, and please leave a message on the Anchor FM voicemail if you have any questions or comments for me. Also, please leave a review on the Apple Podcasts app. That would help the podcast reach more people. That would be great. Follow Mind Bloom on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at MindBloomU, and check out my website, mindbloomu.com. Don't forget, a new episode every Tuesday. I look forward to spending time with you again next week. Be well and stay blessed. Bye-bye.